there, it's Nina here with Walla Stamping. Thank you for joining me today. So I have a card that I want to share with you. I was just in my craft room this morning trying to come up with something to make that would be different, and I've had these stencils for a while. They're the Sweet Soiree decorative mask, and I've just now really got around to using them. So I tried to use them to create a background, and I really got excited about how it turned out. When I first did it, I had the background coming down this way, and I liked it. But then when I just happened to flip it around this direction, immediately in my mind, I saw a field of wildflowers. So I think you're really going to love how easy this card is to put together. Now, I'll have a list of all of the supplies that I'm using to make this card, as well as all of the measurements at the very end of this video, and I'll also have them over on my blog. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm starting out with a piece of Daffodil Delight, and this is cut to 8.5 by 5.5. I've scored it at 4 1/4, and then this is going to be my card base. To stamp all of these cute little flowers on right here, I just have a scrap piece of Whisper White. And then to do all of my background stenciling and coloring on, I have another piece of Whisper White, and this is cut to 5 1/4 by 4. Then for the matting around my background, I've got a piece of Bermuda Bay, and this is cut to 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. I have a couple of scraps here of my Bermuda Bay and my Whisper White. I'm just going to use these to create the little sentiment that you see right here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start out with my Lemon Lime Twist, and I'm going to add this ink to the top of my cardstock, and this is the piece that is cut to 5 1/4 by 4. My table's a little bit wobbly, so I apologize for it not being still while I'm doing this inking. And I'm doing it from what I'm calling the top down because it's just easier for me to do it in this direction, but this will actually end up becoming the bottom. Next, I'm going to go into my Daffodil Delight. Now that I have my colors blended there, I'm going to take my stencil and lay it on top of my cardstock. And the thing that I want to keep in mind is where this tallest piece right here ends, I want to make sure that I have enough room at the top of my page to stick a flower on the end of that one. So that right there looks pretty good. Make sure that I have it on there straight. Then I flip it upside down like this, and I'm using some painter's tape to hold this into place. Then I'll flip it back over to do my coloring. And for me, I like to do it left to right like this. So I'm going to start off with my Garden Green. And I'm just going to go in little small circles, just like this. And I kind of like working across the top first because I want this area to really be the darkest and then get lighter as it goes toward the white side. Going to wipe off the excess ink from my stencil. Then I will remove that. Look how pretty that looks already. Then I'm going to add my stencil back again, but I'm going to put it down so that these come down a little bit further than the first ones, and I'm putting them in between where the garden green ones were stamped. So then I'm going to use my Bermuda Bay. I don't want this color to be quite as dark as the garden green, because I want it to have the appearance of maybe being further off in the background. Down here at the bottom, I am going to keep it a little bit darker, but then as I come up, I'm going to let it fade out a little bit. So I have all of that colored in, and doesn't that look like a summer afternoon out in a grassy field somewhere? I just love how this looks. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this little scrap piece of Whisper White, and let me tell you what size this is. This is about 3 by 4.5, so something around that size will be just fine. And now I'm going to be using my Memento ink. Now the stamp set that I'm using for this is the Cake Soiree. This is a 2-box stamp set, and I'm just going to be using this little image right here to stamp my flowers, and then I'm going to be using this to say happy birthday. Now this is a bundle, and the thinlets that I'm using, or the framelits, is called the Cake Soiree framelits, and what I'm going to be using out of here is this little framelit right here, which will cut out those stamped floral images. So I'm going to stamp 12 of these. I'm going to be using some Stampin' Blends to color these in. I'm not going to worry about doing any shading. You can if you like, but I'm just going to keep this simple. I have light rich raspberry, light Bermuda Bay, light pumpkin pie, and dark daffodil delight. And what I chose to do was do 3 of each color of these flowers. Now I'm going to show you how I colored them in, and do one of these on camera, and then the rest of them I'll get colored in off camera and get them run through my Big Shot, and then come back and we'll start putting the card together. So when you're using your Stampin' Blends, you don't want to have a very heavy hand. You want to use a light touch. And I ran all of my little flowers through my Big Shot after I got them all cut out. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a little bit of snail, and I'm going to run a couple of pieces on the back of my card about just about 1 inch up from the bottom. Then I'm going to take my classic weave Whisper White ribbon. I'm going to put a piece there. Then it's going to come across, and I'm going to snip it off over here just about 6 inches past the edge of the card. Then I'll take another piece and stick it into that snail, and then cut another piece off that's about 6 or 7 inches past the edge. Let's see, I don't quite have this straight. Let me reposition that. Then what I'm going to do is take this across my card, and I'm going to tie this in a bow right over here to the left-hand side. And snip, snip off the extra that I don't need. I'm going to use my glue dots now, and I usually like to do this just to make sure that when I put my bow in place that it stays where I want it. So I'm going to put a glue dot right behind the knot of that bow, and I also like to put some underneath the little tails right here, and then sometimes I even put them behind the bow itself, but I think that looks fine like that. So I'm gonna leave it just the way that it is. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to take just one more and put it underneath right here to hold that in place. So now comes putting on all of my flowers. I'm going to use this one as a guide, and what I did was I just took some dimensionals and I placed them where I knew I wanted my flowers to go. So you can fill yours in any way that you want to. And I'm going to wait to put the last one on because I'm not sure where I'm going to want to end up putting that one. So I'm just going to speed through this real quick so that it's not going to be so boring for you to watch me putting all of these into place. Alright, so now I have all of my flowers in place. I'm just going to flip this over and I'm going to run some snail on the back of this to attach that to the front of my card. And when you put this on, just make sure that you leave a border of that Bermuda Bay around the outside. Now we're going to move on to making our sentiment. So I have my little scrap pieces here of my Whisper White and my Bermuda Bay. To stamp my sentiment, I'm going to use my Memento ink. And all that I want to use out of this stamp is just the part that says Happy Birthday. So I've got a piece of my painter's tape and I'm covering up the other wording on this sentiment. Then I'm going to come in here with that ink and get the Happy Birthday inked up very, very well. Remove that tape. Then I'm going to try to stamp this as straight as I possibly can. If I don't get it perfect though, since I'm going to be cutting it out, it's not a huge deal. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to use my trimmer. Let me move a couple of these things out of the way to get this cut to where I want it to be. So I think I'm going to trim just a little bit off the bottom. Make sure I've got that straight. Then I'm going to slide that in, and I'm just judging, looking through the little slit here and trying to determine how close I need to trim to the top. And that is going to work out just fine. So what I'm going to do now, move that out of the way, use my snail and attach my sentiment to, actually I think I'm going to trim off a little bit of these on the sides first because that's a little bit longer than what I want it to be. Then I'm going to lay this on my Bermuda Bay just like this, and I'm creating myself a border here and here so that I don't have to cut so much to get my border on there. So trim up this side and then across the top, trying to keep these borders the same as the ones on the bottom. There we go, that looks good. And I'm also going to be using dimensionals to pop this up on my card. Now you can create this however you like. If you want your sentiment to be longer, which on this one it is just a little bit longer, you can do that. Just make it according to your personal preference. Then I'm just going to stick this right on top of that ribbon. So now our birthday cards are complete. I think this is such a fun card, and of course it doesn't have to be birthday. You could use this for Mother's Day or Easter or any other kind of occasion or holiday that you want to. So thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today and letting me share this card with you. I hope that I have inspired you to give this card a try. If you need any of the supplies that you've seen me use here today, they're going to be listed at the end of this video as well as in the description box below, and also I'm going to have them included in the printable instruction sheet that you can grab over on my blog at wallastamping.com. If you like this tutorial and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and don't forget to add your name to my newsletter list where I share projects you won't see anywhere else. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you soon.